So this time it's Estonia, or Esti. It's Roman, you know. Esti. We are in the Baltic states, and it's... You prefer chicken madras? Baltic states. There are three of them, right? There's Estonia right up at the top, Latvia and Lithuania, and they all border on to the Baltic Sea, hence the name. This place has Russia over there, it has Latvia down there, and there's a fair chance they could consider themselves to be more Scandinavian than Estonian. Well, you see, it's only across the water, and this place has been occupied by everyone, by the Danes, by the Swedes, by the Germans, by the Poles, by the Russians, you name it. If there's a few bob in it, they've been here. This place is also full of history, medieval towns. Just a minute. Walled little cities, everything you could possibly want, including booze. Loads of... They look... Alcohol everywhere. No, in fact, I tell you what, matey. At the end of today, the beers are on me. As much as you can drink. Eh? Now, it's not often I say that, is it? Today, you're on. Penny money, do a map, show where we are. Is Tallinn, the capital of Estonia. It comes from the Danish Tallinn, Danish town. And I know what you're going to ask. You're going to ask, why has it got a Danish name? You are going to ask it because I'm going to tell you. Let's do some... This is fascinating. Some real history. The Finno-Ugrits, a tribe that settled here 5,000 years ago. The Estonians are direct descendants of that tribe, which they claim makes this the longest settled place in all of Europe. Amazing! They held on to this place until the beginning of the 13th century. Now, at that point, the German princes were on the move. They were pushing out in the name of Christianity and also getting a load of dosh along the way. They fancied this place because of its amber. It was full of amber, not amber nectar, no, amber. Lots and lots of money, pal. But they couldn't quite get in here, so they invited their Danish pals to come in from the top. And they did, in 1,000 ships. That's not a Viking longboat. This place is right next door to Finland. It's only 50-something kilometers to Helsinki, that way. And do you know that their language is almost the same as Finnish? That's why I say they could almost be Scandinavian, this lot. Right, shall we go off and discover? Great. This is Tallinn, and it's a walled city, and those walls used to have 46 towers. This is the fattest and the dumpiest of all the towers, known as Fat Margaret. She's the landlady at the Elk and Gherkin. Really? Well, I reckon that it got its name because of the cannon that used to be in it. Fat Margaret, see? Yes, it was before she worked at the pub. It was 15th century. Shall we go in and find out about the city? Yes, great. I'm pondering. I'm wondering, why are you so excited about doing some history? You're counting the minutes. Oh, I see. The quicker we do it, the quicker you get your beer tonight. Absolutely. Well, no problem. Now then, let's go to the 13th century. The Germans are on the move, and the Pope says there's a load of heathens up in the north. Go and sort them out. So, they do. Bish, bosh, all in the name of God. And they get here, and they find that there's a Dominican monastery in another part of town which is doing everything for free. Worse still, they're doing it in Estonian and not in Latin. So they burn the place down. And the monks decide to come over here, 1246, and they build this fine monastery where they continue to do everything for free for the people and in Estonian. How do they do it for free? Well, they are also trading in fish and by brewing beer. Four kinds of beer. You'd be well made up with them, wouldn't you, eh? Unfortunately, they're not doing it here anymore. Now, later, during the Reformation, same time as we were having it back at home, this place closed down. It became a school, a hospital, and an arsenal. And there's one thing you don't want to have happen in an arsenal. And it happened here. And what do you think it was? Storm damage. No, a fire. Everything destroyed, in ruins, but they're doing it up now. And it's champion. And there's an old champion on top of the old town hall, known as Old Thomas, a little statue of a soldier with a sword who's been guarding the people of Tallinn since the 1500s. But he didn't do that good a job, did he? Because just about everyone's been in here. But anyway, not to worry. The town hall, 14th century, but they've had a market here since the 10th century. This place really started to boom in the 1200s. 1285, they joined the Hanseatic League. Hansa is the German word for league, so we actually say the League, which is interesting. You're right, it's like koi carp. Absolutely, carp. Anyway, they joined it. It was a group of traders from Germany, the Low Countries, which is the Netherlands, England, and the Baltic states who joined together to help one another. And it boomed. This place was full of business, trading under the arches of the town hall. Muchus, docius, being spentus. They renamed it Revel. And was that because they were reveling in it? Are you on drugs or something? Talking of which, you know, in 1422, this place was a chemist, and it served Peter the Great. He didn't want something for the weekend. He was poorly. They were trying to get some medicine. He died. Yes, it was serious. Was that you, or was that real thunder? It was real thunder, wasn't it? Now that is Peeping Tom's house. Peeping Tom was a chemist, and he used to look across the street at the ladies on the other side. It's not good, and it's not big, and it's not clever. Anyway, they put a little statue to him up there. This is Pick Street. Pick means long, and it used to run from the town centre, well, it does, right the way down to the port. And they used to drag all the merchandise up here to the town. And because they dragged the merchandise up here, guess who built their houses along it? The traffic wardens. No, the merchants built their houses here, right? They had living accommodation. There are holes in the road as well. It's going terribly well. Living accommodation and warehouses. And they dragged the goods up, stow them in. And they were all members of guilds. And those guilds controlled what came in, what went out, and how much it cost. There are all sorts of names for them. Up there, you've got the Blackheads Guild. It's got nothing to do with spots. It's actually unmarried merchants. And here, the Great Guild. 1410, that building was put up. Now, if that's the Merchant Street, I'll show you the Craft Street. This is Lay Street, which means wide street. And this is where the craftspeople worked. Furniture, all sorts being made here. And after thunder, you, of course, get rain. It's where you're going. Oi. You can't just troll off into some bar. I'll get you a beer at the end. I know it's raining. We've got work to do. Press on. We can't just pamper to your every whim. Unless, of course, it's my whim. And as I'm feeling a bit peckish, I thought we'd have a bit of Estonian food. How's about that? Pickled herrings. I told you these people were nearly Finns. I don't mean fins on fish. I mean, right, pickled herrings, few onions on the top, looks like a bit of basil that's been put on it, tomato, mayonnaise, don't know what that is in the middle actually, but there we go, probably a potato, and Grandma's Sunday roast. Well, you have it at your grandma's on a Sunday, right? Egg on top of some brown bread that's been fried. They don't do white bread here. It's not a white bread place, man. It's brown bread. And then some pork underneath, loads of pork underneath, veg, bit of gherkins, wild mushrooms, or at least they were when they were picked this morning, and then some red cabbage. Right, gotta have some cabbage. Surprisingly, a traditional dessert, strawberries and cream. Oh, terribly, awfully British. And washed down with some Estonian beer. You can't have it. You know very well. We've got hours of work ahead of us. And talking of getting ahead, we've got to get to the top of the hill. I'll give this back to the chef. This is Toompea. Toompea means dome head. This is where Tallinn began. In fact, the legendary leader of the Estonians, Caliph, is said to be buried somewhere around here. You're not going to find him. The nobility lived up here. They built the city walls to protect themselves, and they built huge, great towers like this one. But from them, they could also keep an eye on the riffraff down below. This tower is known as the peep in the kitchen because it could peep into everybody's kitchen, keeping an eye on them. Now this is actually Toompea Castle, although it's not. I'll explain in a minute. First of all, there was your Estonians, who in the 10th century built a bit of a fortification. Then along came the Danes in 1219, and then the Germans in 1227. And before you even look at your clock, I don't mean 1227 the time, I mean the date, right? They were the Knights of the Sword. And they were very important to Tallinn because they brought with them their culture and their architectural know-how and their social system, i.e. we're dead important, we live on top of the hill, you lot, Estonians, serfs down the bottom. And it stayed like that for ages. Eventually, the castle was pulled down. And this palace was built and then rebuilt by Catherine the Great. Today, it's the Parliament building. Interestingly, the Estonian Parliament building looks at a Russian church. They probably shout rude things to one another across the courtyard. Tomkirk Church. Dome, it means, and it has a rather large one. This is on top of the hill in the middle of the city, and this is where the posh people lived. Oh yes, lots of money, you were here. But not all of them were into going into a Christian church, because for donkey's years, paganism has been big business in this part of the world. Sacred forests, worshipping trees. What do you mean I'd have done well here? I'm wooden. Listen, that's why Estonia to this day still has beautiful forests and lakes. They were into preserving. In fact, Midsummer's Day here is still a major festival. However, 1233, a whacking great big piece of Christianity. Let's go inside. Do you know who that was? The first Russian to circumnavigate the world, 1803. Yuri Gagarin. No, now this one was actually done in a boat, although he did circumnavigate the world, correct. This was for a Scotsman who became famous in the Russian Navy. Says Scotto there. I know, bizarre, but true. Rich people, coats of arms up on the wall all over this church. Poor people down here in the pews. This is where you'd sit. But if you had real money, you got to go in the royal boxes up here. Now, in the front part of the church, the really rich were buried. Swedes to the left of me, Germans to the right. Here I am, stuck in them, forget it. Over here, Pontus de la Gardie. Now, this Swede became, there's his name, became very famous for a battle in Narva. Now, Narva is only about 210 kilometres away, so we can go there and have a look at it, because we've just about got time. Oh, look, what are you moaning about? So it's taken a bit of time to get... I know what the time is. Look, there's plenty of light left. We're filming away. Look, on the way to Narva, we've stopped off at Narva, waterfall on the river Narva. And on the other side of that river, Russia. Ah, got your interest now, haven't I? Yep, it's worth stopping off here because you remember the German knights, the Knights of the Sword I was talking about it was only moments ago. Anyway, look. They were told by the Pope that they were too vicious as they spread the word of Christianity. So they disbanded and they became part of the Teutonic Knights. And they went around building castles and setting up towns in strategic places. And guess what this is? It's a strategic place, which is why there's a 12th century ruin of a castle here. Strategic, why? Well, because of the river Narva, and because up there is Lake Pepsi, the 4th largest, it's nothing to do with having a drink, the 4th largest lake in Europe. And down here, fishermen would have to pull in their catch and have it weighed at this castle. It was a weigh station, then they'd be taxed on it. This is where it all happened. You can feel it, can't you? Cross-border tension. Russian Orthodox Church over there, Christianity over here. Yeah, well, get penny money to show it. That gets you excited, doesn't it? To show exactly where we are. Worth another little stop at Pruhitsa Nunnery. Pruhitsa means holy place. On our way to Narva. Now, behind me, a mural that tells a little story. Common people out in the woods, they see an image of Mary on an oak tree. They go and tell their friends, they come back, and it's turned into an icon on the tree. It's a miracle! So they build a church of wood right on that spot. And then moments later, they build something a little more substantial. In fact, a cathedral out of stone and 5 churches around it. This is a nunnery. And there are 100 Where did he keep the bread? No, I said a nunnery, not a granary. There are 160 nuns here, worshipping, dedicating their life to the Russian Orthodox Church. People around here speak Russian. Yep, they're Estonians, but Russian. Will you stop looking at the sky when you've got this to look at? I don't mean down there. It's just a small thing over there. Perhaps you'd like to look at that. Oh, yes, Narva Castle. Let's start with the word itself. Baltic Finnish. Oi! No, I don't mean Finnish. I'd say rap if I meant... I didn't say that then. Finnish. Right. It means threshold. Just like Praha. Prague, remember? You haven't been to Prague. Struth, why do I drag you round the world? Look, Danes, they built this castle, fantastic, 13th century. And the Russians built their castle on the other side of the river. There it is, that's Russia over there. Now, when the Teutonic Knights came along, they built an even bigger and grander castle. And the Tsar over there said, well, if they're having a big castle, I'm having a big one as well. So he built another big one, except they forgot to build a church within the castle. And the Tsar said, you've got 24 hours to build a church, otherwise you're dead, right? In the sort of Christian way that you might. Well, there it is. to Russia with love. The little border's just down there. Sean Connery. Brilliant. Can you do Roger Moore as well? Very good. Let's get some history done. You've got to admit, it is pretty impressive. The two fortresses either side, the river through the middle, the city's emblem. This place in the 16th century was a thriving centre, a city to challenge that of Tallinn, can you believe? Tallinn is the place you've just come from. Don't you remember anything? Look, whilst this was doing ever so well, then came the collapse of the Hanseatic League, and this place started to teeter a bit. And a Russian on the other side of the river saw his moment. That was Ivan the Terrible. And I don't know what the Russians called him. Maybe they called him Ivan the Not So Bad, really. Sort of top-hole bloke. Yeah, that trips off the tongue. Anyway, he came in and started kicking around the German knights, the Teutonic knights, and taking land off them. So they phoned up Sweden. They said, 1558, got a bit of a problem. Can you come and help us, Sweden? They said, no problem, mates. We'll be there in a moment. But they came and took the land, and they didn't give it back to the Germans. Sneaky. So then the Germans said to the Russians, come and batter the Swedes. And that started a war that lasted for 25 years. Now, come through here. Let's jump a bit now to 1700. And Peter the Great says, I've had enough of these Swedes. And he marches in and smashes them to bits. Now, I mean, smashes them to bits. We're talking, one of his generals said that from here to Riga, or Riga, it's a long way away, 400 kilometres, you couldn't hear the bark of a dog or the crow of a cock. No, he wasn't deaf. He means everything was dead. Yes, Struth. So they were here for 200 years, the Russians. Then, between the First and Second World War, Estonia has independence. Hurrah!